You ever wonder why so many long-haul flights kick off around midnight, when you're eating a second dinner at 38,000 feet, then trying to sleep sitting upright? So why does the industry keep doing it? Today, we're breaking down the 6 puzzle pieces behind this weird pattern. And once they click together, the schedule starts to feel like it couldn't really be anything else. And piece 6 surprises most people, because that invisible wind is why the same route can be an hour faster in one direction, and why some flights can't even take the straight line. But before we get to the wind, let's start with piece 1, how your body clock is actually helping airlines save time. Piece 1 starts in your head, because your body has a built-in sleep window, and airlines love scheduling long hauls right when you're already sliding into it. You don't need a science lecture to feel it. Late night hits, your eyes get heavy, and a 5-minute tick-tock somehow turns into 45 minutes and a sudden, panicked look at the clock. That's the advantage. When the flight begins during your natural wind down, you're not forcing sleep from scratch. You're just letting it happen. Even if it's choppy, even if it's not pretty, a couple hours of dozing can make a long flight feel way more survivable. And airlines help it along. They dim the lights early, quiet the cabin, wrap service, basically setting the room so your brain gets the message. This is an overnight flight. Think about a classic run like JFK around 10 p.m., Heathrow mid-morning. You board tired, you get a messy stretch of sleep, and you land with daylight ahead of you. Flip that schedule, and you're arriving at midnight local time, wide-eyed in a new country, trying to convince your body it's bedtime. So if you want to steal the same advantage, make the first hour boring on purpose. Turn the screen down, go light on the food, and don't make a last-second coffee your pre-flight personality. And if you think sleep only benefits you, wait until you see what it does for the cabin. When the lights go down on a long haul, the plane stops acting like a busy public space and starts acting like an overnight room. The aisle clears, people stop popping up every 10 minutes, and the whole cabin becomes easier to run. And have you noticed the call button at night is basically a social experiment? In the daytime, it's constant. On a red eye, it's quiet until one person wakes up 2:40 a.m. like, yeah, I'm gonna order something right now. For the crew, 10 hours in the air isn't the hard part. 10 hours of non-stop servicing is. That quiet block is when the operation can actually breathe. The galley flow gets predictable. Carts get staged without weaving through traffic, and the crew can time service, reset, and prep the next round without running an obstacle course in the aisle. It also matters for safety. When fewer people are up and moving, there's less chance someone is standing at the exact wrong moment if the ride gets bumpy. Turbulence is annoying either way, but it's a lot less risky when most passengers are seated and settled. So yes, night flights line up with your sleep, but they also line up with the cabin running smoother for 10+ hours straight. Are you the type who can knock out on a plane in 5 minutes? Or are you Q team? I'm just gonna stare at the seatback map until we land. Because even a perfectly calm cabin isn't the main reason airlines obsess over timing. The bigger reason is what happens after you land. Here's why night departures keep showing up on long hauls. Airlines aren't scheduling one flight, they're scheduling a chain. Big hubs, think Heathrow, Dubai, and Istanbul, run on coordinated connection banks. A bunch of long-haul planes land in a tight morning window. The airport funnels those passengers through, and then a second wave of flights fans out across the region. That early morning arrival is the sweet spot. Land around 5 or 6 a.m., and you can realistically connect a couple hours later to dozens of places. Say you're going from Los Angeles to Hanoi and you're connecting through Tokyo. If your long haul lands in the morning, you get a clean handoff into the next bank of departures. So the whole trip feels like one continuous move. Now flip it. If that long haul lands late afternoon or late night, the connection menu shrinks fast. Those onward flights are already gone, and connection turns into overnight, which is expensive for airlines and miserable for passengers. People simply choose a different route next time. That's why so many long-haul flights are built to arrive in the morning at a hub. The night departure is the setup. And once everyone is fighting for that same morning window, the next layer becomes obvious. Airports treat those times like prime real estate. Slots and curfews squeeze schedules into a few narrow windows. If you've ever noticed that long-haul flights on the same route all seem to leave around the same time, this is why. At the busiest airports, airlines aren't buying space. They're buying a specific minute. Here's the simple way to picture it. Airlines pick the landing time first, because landing is the hard part to get. Big hubs have morning arrival waves, tons of long hauls trying to show up in the same window so passengers can connect onward. And at crowded airports, you can't just roll in whenever you feel like it. You need a slot, basically permission to land or take off in a narrow window. Now add curfews and the schedule gets even tighter. Some airports basically go quiet overnight. Frankfurt has a strict ban from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. Sydney heavily restricts operations roughly from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. When that window hits, it's not, please don't, it's, you can't. So the airline targets that golden moment right after the airport opens up again, early morning, because that's when arrivals are allowed and connections are waiting. And once the landing time is locked, everything else is just math. If you need to land around 6 a.m., you count backward from there. 8 hours of flying, plus taxi time, plus a little buffer, and your departure ends up in the late night zone. That's why night departures aren't random. They're often the only way to hit the one arrival window the airline actually wants, and is actually allowed to use. And curfews can even mess with the last few miles. If a flight is running early, it can't just land because it's there. Sometimes it has to slow down or circle until that window opens. Ever been stuck doing loops before landing? That's what it looks like when the clock matters more than the distance. And Piece 5 is where it gets expensive, because every minute that widebody isn't flying, it's just sitting there burning money. Let's put a number on the problem. Picture a widebody that costs hundreds of millions of dollars landing, and then sitting there for 12 hours, sometimes just to wait for the crew to be legally rested again. That's not downtime. That's half a day where a flying revenue machine is doing exactly zero revenue. And it's still costing money. Financing or lease payments, insurance, scheduled maintenance, gates, ground handling. Nothing about that pause is free. So airlines obsess over keeping planes productive because in a low-margin business, more productive hours per aircraft can make or break a route. This is why that classic long-haul rhythm shows up so often. Think transatlantic. Fly overnight, land in the morning, turn the aircraft during the day when staffing is strongest, then send it back out without creating a giant dead zone where it's just parked. And here's the human factor that ties it together. Remember that quiet stretch we talked about earlier? Fewer people up, fewer interruptions? That's not just nice for passengers. It makes crew rest rotations easier to manage in the air on wide bodies with dedicated rest areas, which means that $300 million jet can keep moving instead of losing extra hours on the ground just because people need sleep. So when a departure time feels kind of rude, what's really happening is the airline is trying to keep a very expensive aircraft moving while staying inside safety rules for the humans operating it. Next up is Piece 6, the one that doesn't care about schedules, slots, or your sleep plan, and can bend flight times, and even the routes planes prefer to take. Most passengers assume a flight path is basically a straight line. Point the nose at Europe, go. Over the North Atlantic, it's closer to a daily changing set of ocean highways in the sky. Up at cruising altitude, the jet stream is a powerful river of air that usually runs west to east. Catch it eastbound, and you don't just arrive earlier. You often burn less fuel doing it. On a wide body, shaving even a chunk of time can translate into serious savings. It's one of those rare moments where it's genuinely a win-win. Passengers get a shorter flight, airlines spend less on fuel. And it's not theoretical. I had this on a recent Seattle to Amsterdam flight. I was watching the moving map like a nerd, and at one point the ground speed was pushing over 1,000 kilometers an hour. It looked almost fake. The scheduled time was about 9.5 hours, and we touched down in a little over 8. My lower back noticed immediately. Same plane, same ocean, different day, different lane of wind. Now layer in how Atlantic flying actually works day to day. Over the North Atlantic, flights don't all pick a random straight line. There are organized oceanic tracks that get adjusted with winds and traffic flow, which means timing can matter more than people expect. Nudge a departure earlier or later, and you might end up on a different track or altitude, different winds, different fuel plan, different arrival time. So now you've got the full picture. The schedule isn't about you or the airport or the airplane. Sometimes it's about catching or avoiding a moving river of air. Which tees up the next question everyone asks. Is flying at night actually cheaper? And why does eastbound skew night while westbound often skews day? Quick bonus before we wrap. Is flying at night actually cheaper? And why does eastbound so often go overnight? Sometimes night is cheaper, but not because it's off-peak pricing. The big win is smoother flow. Less congestion, less sitting in taxi lines, fewer ground holds, and fewer tiny delays that can ripple through an airline's schedule. But it's not guaranteed. Some airports cost more at night because of staffing, noise rules, or curfew-related penalties. Now the human side. Different travelers choose night flights for different reasons. Business travelers like overnight eastbound trips because it protects the workday. You work a normal day, fly at night, sleep a bit, and land in the morning. Then it's straight to a lounge shower or the hotel to freshen up, and you can walk into meetings without burning an extra day on travel. Leisure travelers often like the same schedule for a totally different reason. It can save a hotel night. Leave in the evening, arrive in the morning at 8, and you've got a full first day to explore. Compare that to a daytime long haul where you spend your whole day on the plane and land when it's already dark. Your vacation day basically disappears. And that's why eastbound leans overnight. Arriving in the morning is simply more useful. Westbound often works better in daylight because you can depart during the day and still land at a normal hour without forcing a weird middle-of-the-night arrival. So the short version, night flights aren't random. They're a practical sweet spot where the network runs smoother, and a lot of passengers actually prefer the timing for totally different reasons. You're not boarding at midnight because an airline is trying to torture you. It's the schedule that keeps the whole system in sync. Your sleep window, a calmer cabin, connection waves, slot rules and curfews, the $300 million airplane math, and even the wind. So, if the airport feels quiet, don't let that fool you. The global network is doing its heaviest lifting right then. Now I want to hear from you. Which piece surprised you the most? Pick one. Sleep, cabin flow, connections, curfews, aircraft economics, or the jet stream, and tell me why in the comments. And what's one airline thing you've always wondered about but never got a straight answer on? Throw that question down there too. I read them, and it might be the next video. If you want more behind-the-scenes travel explanations like this, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.